Hello everyone, welcome back to Twilight Tales. The fire is lit, the shadows are growing longer, and tonight's tale is one you won't forget. If you love chilling horror stories that keep you awake long into the night, make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and don't forget to dim the lights. You won't want anyone else to see your face when the fear kicks in. Now, let's turn the page. It began in the quiet town of Marrow's Edge, a sleepy place pressed between the forest and the fog. No one famous ever came from Marrow's Edge. No great wars were fought there. The only stories that lived on were told in whispers, usually around campfires or in bars after the third drink. But one story survived the decades, clawing its way into the dreams of anyone foolish enough to read it. The story of the Veritas grimoire. Eleanor Price was 32 and newly divorced. She had the tired smile of someone who had tried too hard for too long. A historian by trade and a loner by nature, she sought solace in the one thing that never left her: old books. Dusty, weathered, leather-bound volumes with gold-foiled spines, and secrets tucked between yellowed pages. When she inherited her great-uncle's cottage on the edge of Marrow's Edge, she didn't hesitate. A fresh start, quiet, isolation, heaven. She arrived in the fall. The trees bled red and orange. The sky was the color of dying embers, and the wind always seemed to whisper just beneath her hearing. The house was old, as expected, but solid. Bookshelves lined the walls, their contents untouched since her uncle's death years prior. He had been a recluse, much like her, and a collector of rare texts. It was on the third night, as the rain hissed against the windows and thunder stalked the horizon, that she found it. She'd been reorganizing the old study when a loose floorboard near the fireplace creaked under her weight. Beneath it, wrapped in black silk, lay a book that didn't belong. It was thick, bound in faded crimson leather, the surface marred by deep scratches like claw marks. The title, scorched into the cover, read Veritas Grimoire. Eleanor's breath caught. She'd heard that name before, once, years ago, in a hushed conversation at a rare books convention in Vienna. A grimoire that revealed the truth beneath reality. A book that could not be burned, could not be destroyed, and should never be read aloud. She laughed nervously. "Well, that's a little dramatic," she muttered, brushing off the dust. But as her fingers touched the cover, the air grew colder. Not just the chill of an old house, this was different, like standing in a shadow that didn't belong to anything. The fire flickered low. A gust of wind howled through the chimney, and for a second she thought she heard whispering. She opened the book. The pages were filled with a strange, twisting script that seemed to shimmer just beyond focus. Sometimes, it rearranged itself when she looked away, and she began to wonder if the text was alive, or at least aware. By the fifth night, Eleanor was obsessed. She read deep into the night, eyes wide and unblinking, fingers trembling as they turned page after page. The book spoke of hidden truths, of veils between worlds thin as spider webs, of spirits that wore human faces, and echoes of people long dead that still walked among us. She laughed at first. It was folklore, fantasy. But then the dreams began. She dreamt of corridors with no end, lined with mirrors that didn't reflect her image. of chanting in dead languages, voices coming from inside the walls, of a figure in the corner of her room, always standing, never moving, always watching. One night she awoke to find herself standing in the hallway, barefoot, with the book clutched tight in her arms. The candle on the windowsill was lit, though. She hadn't touched it in days. She began to see things, quick flashes in the corner of her eye. Faces twisted in agony in the mirrors, a dark shape lingering just beyond her line of sight. But worst of all was the sound, a low, rhythmic whispering always from behind her that stopped the moment she turned around. The town noticed too. The grocer stopped making small talk. The librarian frowned when Eleanor asked for books on exorcism and ancient rituals. Children stared at her wide-eyed before running away. One afternoon, as she waited for coffee in the small cafe on Main Street, an old woman shuffled up beside her. "You found the book, didn't you?" she rasped, eyes pale with cataracts. Eleanor froze. "What book?" The woman's hand shot out and gripped her wrist with surprising strength. "Veritas doesn't reveal truth. It traps you in it. There's a reason your uncle went mad. Burn it now, before it finishes writing the last page." The last page? She tried. That very night she doused the book in kerosene and lit a match. The flames danced high and died the moment they touched the cover. Not even a scorch mark. She threw it in the river. It was back on her nightstand the next morning. She buried it in the forest. It returned, wet and steaming, on her kitchen table. Then, on the 13th night, the truth revealed itself. She had fallen asleep at the desk, the book open before her. The fire was low, casting red shadows on the walls. The wind outside sounded like laughter. And then she woke, but not in her bed. She was still at the desk, but the room was wrong. The walls pulsed, almost breathing. The shadows were darker than they should be. The fireplace held no flame, but a gaping hole, and from within it came the sound of pages turning. The book was gone. In its place stood a tall figure in a robe of shredded parchment. Its face was a writhing mass of ink and eyes. It raised a hand and Eleanor couldn't move. "You read too far," it said, though its mouth never moved. "The final truth is not meant for mortal minds." The walls cracked. A wind howled from nowhere. The house trembled. "I just wanted answers," she whispered, her voice trembling. "And you shall have them," it replied. It stepped closer. Each footfall left words scrawled across the floorboards, bleeding, burning, twitching. It reached out, and the moment its fingers touched her forehead, her eyes rolled back. Eleanor screamed, but not aloud. Inside her mind, doors opened. And behind each door was her, but not as she remembered. In one, she was screaming in a padded cell. In another, she was burning at the stake. In a third, she was a child, reaching for a book that dripped blood onto the nursery floor. Endless versions of her life. Endless paths. All different. All wrong. The entity spoke again. "Truth is a curse. Knowledge is a prison. The final page is written in your soul." And then it was gone. She awoke in her bed, drenched in sweat. The book was there, open on her chest. Only one page remained. It was blank, for now. She tried to leave Marrow's Edge the next day, car packed, keys in hand. She made it 5 miles before the road looped back to her house. Every time, she was trapped, each night. The book flipped closer to the final page on its own. Each night the voices grew louder. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping. She whispered to herself constantly, trying to drown out the things she couldn't unhear. The town forgot about her, literally. Her name faded from records. The librarian said she never lived there. The cottage appeared abandoned, though a faint candle always flickered in the upper window. And then finally, the page turned. No one knows what was written, only that when the mailman delivered a package a week later, no one answered the door. Inside, the cottage was empty, dusty, abandoned for decades, except for the book resting on the desk. The last page was filled with your name. Still with us? If you made it this far, congratulations. But you may want to check your bookshelves tonight. Sometimes, stories don't end on the last page. Sometimes they begin with you. Thanks for spending your night with Twilight Tales. If this story chilled your spine, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, not every book is meant to be read. Until next time, sleep tight.